The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we've got a really great webinar for you today, kind of discussing Digital PR 101 and what content marketers and SEO specialists need to know. I'll be moderating today. My name is Cole Finney. I'm with the American Marketing Association, the chapter out of Austin. And I'd love to briefly just introduce all of our speakers today real quick. I'd love to start with Zoe.
Hi, yes, I'm Zoe Schofield. I am Head of Digital PR at Search Labs, and I kind of oversee the PR team, working really closely with our SEO and creative team as well.
I am Allie. I'm a content specialist at Search Labs in Austin, Texas, and I manage all the content-related tasks with our SEO and digital PR activities. So essentially creating campaigns that we work on, which involves, research, data analysis, writing press releases, reports, blogs, and the other content-heavy related tasks.
Yeah, I'm Roma Gallardo. I'm the US PR and social media specialist here in Austin as well. I work on outreaching and reviewing content that Allie puts out, thinking of different strategies for US campaigns, seeing how we can get those links. I also work on organic social for clients as well.
Hi, I'm Sophia Pinto. I am the US PR and Media Relations Specialist at Search Labs, also in Austin, Texas. I'm definitely in the day-to-day media outreach for clients as well, along with collaborating with Roma and Allie on campaigns as well. Definitely also speaking a lot to the overall US media landscape and how we collaborate with our UK counterparts as well.
Awesome, thank y'all so much. And before we get started, just a few housekeeping items. I know everybody's really busy, so we want to make sure that we aim to keep the panel to less than an hour, so that we make sure we want to respect your time. Thank you for coming to see us, and we want you to be able to have a good, engaging discussion. And if you do have some questions during the webinar, please feel free to submit them at any point using the Q&A feature that's in the GoToWebinar interface, and we'll get to a lot of those questions at the end of the panel. And then finally, we'll also send a recording of this panel discussion to all the attendees within the next few days. So without further ado, go ahead. We'll kick it off to you, Zoe.
Great, thank you, Cole. So we are going to be having a few polls as well throughout the webinar, so please do answer them and we can kind of collate those results at the end. And yeah, let's get started. So on today's agenda, we are going to go through what actually is digital PR, and then how that actually can support SEO in your digital strategy. Then we'll be looking into digital PR and the US media landscape, and then we'll finish off before the panel with a couple of case study examples as well and how our work goes into practice. So first of all, it's not a webinar without a definition. So actually, what is digital PR? If we move to what is public relations, that's how we kind of first start off. So PR is any external content that really helps a brand increase its visibility. So connecting that brand or company to its audience, but without paid ads. So these examples include creating stories for different publications, any organic social media campaigns, and events for positive awareness and engagement. But what actually is digital PR? So it uses tactics really similarly to traditional PR, but it does have aims. So it really focuses on SEO objectives such as improving visibility, any rankings for keywords, through achieving really high authority, relevant links on digital publications and sites. It has a more kind of precise, all-encompassing strategic approach that really improves brand recognition and establishes website authority. So just looking at a strategy that it really is to use to increase awareness using different brands' online methods. Actually looking at is to increase and build links on online news sites, digital publications and magazines, blogs, online journals, and also social media, And I've just included a couple of different publications as well that we regularly get links on, and we've built a really good, strong relationship with as well to gain secure links for our clients on these publications. So the term digital PR isn't as widely known in the US yet. It's definitely becoming more and more well known and popular. But it's content marketing meets PR. It's very much influenced by SEO and content strategies, and it isn't just about technical link building. It really does encompass increasing brand awareness. I think it isn't really about technical link building because it is quite an old school term. It does have a few misconceptions, but really in summary, it's digital public relations is more of an approach to really increase those backlinks and build awareness for the brand. A diagram here as well, just to kind of really show you how it sits between traditional PR and content marketing, because digital PR is a bit of a blended approach, but it is there to achieve measurable goals supporting wider digital strategies. It's very similar to content marketing. It involves creating content that's very similar to content marketing activities, so example reports, studies. Instead of creating content for a really specific audience, it's more relevant to a wider audience, but it does still have similar goals to content marketing in terms of building credibility, brand awareness, and it does have similar activities contributed to articles that's active in both content marketing and digital PR strategies. But a lot of people ask digital PR professionals market a piece of content, so you know, a blog or a report, some kind of digital asset to journalists. So to acquire coverage on these high quality tier 1 golden publications that we really want those strong links on, we need to kind of speak their language and the journalist language. So it means really adhering to really specific journalist practices and standards that are followed by the traditional PR industry, kind of such as using press releases to pitch our stories, and then obviously kind of build those links back that way as well. So how digital PR supports SEO is a wider picture. So audience data is really essential when to make sure that our activity is aligned with those behaviours and also what they really want to see from the brand. We inform and align our PR services and our activity, combining that with SEO insights, with keywords, and commercial data, and then these really help inform our ideas to create our different campaigns that we really want to use in our storytelling. Once we've kind of pitched our campaign or story and the publication has covered that, it generates links and coverage, and they create signals to drive performance. Google then uses these links as a trust signal, which then allows us to help our site rank higher and appear in more searches. So just to take you through some goals that digital PR activity tends to focus on, there's 3 kind of main areas. The first is around traffic acquisition sales. The second is around increasing brand awareness, and the third is audience engagement. But we also can boil that down to digital PR specific objectives. So these are a lot kind of umbrella themes around our campaigns that we go out with for our different digital PR strategies. We really want to be increasing visibility of our target areas and keywords that align closely with the SEO strategy. We want to be boosting brand awareness and engagement where our audience is active. One of our main aims is really building those relevant, good quality links back to our client site. And then overall, of course, we always want to be generating that positive coverage around a brand. Over our US digital PR landscape, Sophia is going to kind of explain a little bit more for us on how we can really find success within digital PR in the US.
So something that we definitely have learned with our clients is that before we approach any US DPR campaign, we're definitely considering what will entice a journalist to share our content and link back to the brand. So something that we have definitely aimed for is having very city and state specific angles to target regional publications. This definitely speaks to our localization strategy and also ensuring our most possible and highest relevancy as well. Our outreach also goes further in that we split it down when it comes to media lists and also in outreaching in specific niches and times, states, and cities. Especially just given the picture in this slide, you can see just with the size comparison up what scale we're able to really attack this with. So some successful campaigns do tend to highlight a comparison between states or cities based on unique and exclusive data. And definitely within pitching, journalists and editors are able to see the increasing relevancy for our content. And of course, our goal is always to create shareable and entirely new visuals backed by exclusive data, which definitely helps our clients to also find success in these very highly relevant local, national publications as well.
Yeah. So how do our digital PR campaigns succeed in the US? We like to have an always-on approach. We like to use 4 different streams of activities. So our first step is our campaigns. These are our hero bespoke campaigns. They may be run over a couple of months. They're on pre-agreed topics and they're to build brand awareness and backlinks back to the site. But we don't want just a burst of results. We always want to make sure that we are securing consistent links and coverage back to the site for our clients. So we also use a proactive approach. These are smaller pieces of content. They look a bit like advice pieces. They're very much expert-led, and they also could be looking like product placement. You can also use existing blog content to drive links. So this might be, a really strong, rich piece of content that's already sat on the site that you can recreate into a smaller press release as well. We then have our reactive stream. This is one of my favorite areas of PR activity. This is jumping on very relevant media opportunities, trending topics. Usually you turn these around in a matter of minutes or hours and really provide expert comments for links and coverage, maybe something that's trending in the news. And then we have our tactical stream. This is very much your SEO link building kind of bread and butter. So these are looking at link earning opportunities, looking at maybe broken links or some non-linking coverage, and just making sure that you have as many links back to the site as possible. Moving on to some case studies. So our first case study is a great example of a really successful PR campaign that we had for a US healthcare client. Our US content team compiled a really thorough report delving into a range of different metrics, really looking at kind of mental health and the impact it has on residents in the US, creating an in-depth report across the whole of the US. So to really highlight our findings with this, we created press releases, working with different experts and using original data, working on both a national and state-specific level. This was a really important part of our strategy that Sophia kind of explained earlier on, just to make sure we have that regional breakdown and make sure that all those press releases are really localized to get those localized links as well. And then we target our high priority media outlets, providing some really amazing results. With this mental health report, we secured an amazing 91 backlinks. 80% of those were actually from our target tier 1 publications. We saw that our year-on-year traffic was up over 19% from this area when we did start securing those links. And we actually also saw that 1,450 keywords were up 11 positions. Moving on to our second case study. So this was for Trusted House Sitters. They're a fantastic brand for a global pet sitting solution company. So just looking into those objectives, they really wanted to secure backlinks to high domain websites through our PR campaigns. They wanted to acquire links through priority landing pages to increase rankings through external authority, and therefore we would increase organic traffic of priority pages as a result of those increased rankings. How did we do? In the first 6 months working with Trusted House Sitters, we used an always-on approach with a 70% focus on the US with a 30% approach working with the UK. And we actually generated 248 links and 296 pieces of coverage from our campaigns and that always-on approach. And they totaled 4.65 million coverage views. We did have a big mix of campaigns, from bigger campaigns to those smaller pieces of proactive and reactive content, really working with advice expert-led pieces that we knew that pet owners would want to read. We worked with a lot of vets, pet psychologists and behaviourists, and we also did some case studies as well. And since we worked with them, their trust flow has increased by a total of 9 points, which is quite hard to move the needle with kind of trust flow, so we're very happy with that. We also saw 191% increase in keyword positions 1 to 3, which is fantastic. That was the end of our kind of presentation. Thank you. If you do have any further questions after the panel, please feel free to contact me, and I'll leave my email address on the bottom for you there as well.
Awesome. That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you, Zoe. And again, if anyone in the audience does have any questions, please feel free to put them in the the Q&A function in the interface that we have with GoToWebinar, and then we'll be able to address them here. But just after listening to your presentation, I had a few questions for you, Zoe. So I mean, whenever there's obviously a lot of work that goes into this and kind of building the strategy and working with your clients. So like, how does your team really work with the client content marketers and any other SEO specialists to really integrate this strategy that y'all craft together? Like, how do you work together when you do this?
Yeah, I do definitely think it is a larger kind of teamwork effort. I mean, we can't really kind of do this alone, as neither can the SEO specialists or kind of our content and clients as well. So first of all, we start with a backlink audit. That's the first thing that we would recommend. We do a full link audit to discover whether there are any link gaps and really devise a golden publication list. We then work really closely with the SEO team to really establish what areas we need to be building links back to on the site, so any kind of focus areas, any key category pages. And then they help inform our ideation session and the types of topics that we should really be including in our brainstorm and the types of campaigns that we should be creating. And once we've kind of done a collaborative brainstorm, we work really closely again with the SEO team and obviously our content and creative team to make sure that all our ideas are very focused on those keywords areas, those category page links. And then once we actually execute those campaigns as well, we'll just ensure that we're always building as many links back to those really key focus areas of the site in order to help improve the SEO strategy and support those rankings.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's wow. Okay, so yeah, I'm hearing a lot of preparation, a lot of ideation, working together, and like really crafting these campaigns. And from a kind of like looking at these campaigns themselves too, Ali, I might direct this at you, since you kind of helped build a lot of those campaigns and the content side. Really, what makes a digital PR, like a campaign or a press release, different from like a traditional PR campaign? In this case, I mean, there's a lot of background work that Zoe talked about, but what makes them different?
Yeah, so in terms of the actual press release, it really isn't that different. If you were to look at, a digital PR press release that a digital marketer wrote versus a press release that a public relations professional wrote, ideally you want those to look the same and have the same, formatting and elements and use of AP style and stuff like that. And then again, this is because there are these industry standards that are important to follow that are already, established. And I think that is something that digital marketers struggle with when trying to implement digital PR, or they're not seeing their press releases getting a lot of pickup. It's just not fully understanding or having that awareness of how important it is to follow these, certain rules and best practices. In order for a journalist to see your information as trustworthy and credible, and then, they put their name on it and give it to their audiences as news. So in that sense, they are very much the same. But in terms of like the actual content of the press releases and the campaigns, I think PR is very much places a lot more emphasis on brand awareness and reputation and building a perception of their brand, whereas digital PR does this a little bit more indirectly. It's a lot more organic. So I think a good example of this, like a textbook definition of a PR campaign, what comes to mind for me is Dove, right? And they're like, what is it? Real beauty campaign. And so when women think of Dove, they think of female empowerment, body positivity, So that's like an example of how a PR campaign might achieve that goal. But in digital PR, it's more so our goal is for using trusted house sitters, for example, a pet owner to go on Forbes and read this article from built out of a report from trusted house sitters about the solo female travel and the safest places to travel as a solo female. And then maybe the next month they go in People magazine and read about pet safety from a trusted house sitters vet. And then maybe the next month they use the trusted house sitters filter built by pet lovers to pick out a dog's toy, right? And so like by that point, sort of whether they realize it or not, or indirectly, they've established this perception of trusted house sitters as, oh, this is like a popular, incredible brand, right? And then, comes full circle when it comes time for them to Google pet sitters near me, and trusted house sitters is at the top because they've got great SEO. Again, they have this perception of, oh, this is a leader in the space, right? So it's a lot more, I guess, organic is a good way to explain it. Yeah.
Okay. And I could totally see that being received well from the audience and more of an organic feeling kind of. I could see that being received really well. Then along with it being received well, how would you, with your client and internally, how would you really know, what are some trends that you might notice when you run these campaigns, and like tools and other items you may use to kind of keep track of the success rate for these campaigns? Because it seems like it is a little different than traditional campaign.
Yeah, in terms of the trends that we see with successful digital PR campaigns, I think one of the biggest things to keep in mind, and it sounds simple, but it's often overlooked, it's making sure that you're providing journalists with news, with new information that is newsworthy. I think that this is best achieved by leveraging data that you have access to. Data is really great. Journalists love data. So, if your company has access to data that many people might think is boring, but you were to let someone like me poke around, you can find that there are actually numerous digital PR campaigns that you can run with just one data set. A good example of this, again, is Trusted House Sitters. When we did pet names, we just had a Excel sheet of all the names registered in the platform, and we were able to create campaigns of the most popular pet names by state and by city and by region, and we were able to touch on the Barbie movie trend, Barbie movie pet names, foodie pet names, stuff like that. And there were some very high quality, beautiful stories with this data, with this just an Excel sheet of like names of pets on their platform. There are stories of like the psychology and significance behind naming your pet, and how culture influences pet names and your relationship with your pet. And so I think, yes, that's a trend in all successful digital PR campaigns, is creating content that audiences really engage with, and that journalists feel is strong to create their own beautiful piece of their story out of what you have.
Awesome. And that makes a lot of sense too. You want it to be something that people want to hear, right? So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds really cool. And then I'm actually going to direct a question now to you, Roma. I did have another kind of tying into that of some of the content you make, but also like, what are some of the strategies or other activities that you can do alongside this content that people want to hear that can help make your campaign, your digital PR successful?
Yeah, so a lot of like what Ali said definitely applies to when we're thinking about new campaigns and strategizing and brainstorming for a client. Overall, topic-wise, we think about, again, the relevance and also the connection to an audience or community. So we really kind of like focus and think about how can our client talk about it where it will be interesting not only to the journalist, but to those potential readers. Because at the end of the day, journalists are looking for something that people are going to read and are going to be like generally interesting. So we found that obviously really not totally pinpointing, but looking into how something can affect a person either now or in the future, and with our client offering a fresh perspective or an expert perspective on it, is probably one of the top overall like things that we can do when creating and thinking about a campaign. And that just definitely goes with like a strong why. We always think about the why. Would somebody want to cover this? Why would somebody want to read this? So really thinking about that leads us into different areas. So for example, when thinking about like a person, depending on the campaign and depending on like how we can, you know, look into like the different niches that it could affect, we look at reactive stuff. So we can either look at local holidays or national holidays, national awareness days, or you know, worldwide awareness days for different communities that our clients can talk on. And we also, what I like to think about is kind of like looking for local impact for local communities. So we also try to regionalize like with that as well. So we, depending on, say if we do a ranking campaign or we're ranking something on, you know, well, different locations, so like states, for example, we're able to get that specific data. That way it can entice more journalists from that state to really like be able to relate to it and feel that their audience would be able to be interested in it and read it. So yeah, that's kind of like one of the big things. And then just kind of like more on activities and trends, like looking for, going again on reactive, looking for those potentials that your client can talk on. So definitely staying up on the news, definitely, you know, staying up on like important topics depending on the client's industry, and seeing how, if something big happens, how they can offer their perspective, a fresh perspective on the topic. And that can, like, you know, depending what trends and everything. Yeah. And then just like another thing that we found, not necessarily, well, it is all strategy, but less on the content and more on just like how we outreach, is really looking into seeing how the media landscape and how it feeds into smaller local stations and syndicates. So it's kind of like aim high, that way those things can get syndicated and it's less work for a person or like for us on our end to like gain those you know, coverage and those articles and that traction. So, you know, being able to aim high, so like national CNBC or NBC, and having their sister stations or like, you know, their syndicated publications and everything else kind of like feed into it, because they all work on the same like news web, is also something that we try to aim for, obviously depending on the campaign, but that's like another thing that we look at.
Okay, awesome. I mean, yeah, so there's a whole lot of different ways to look at it then. And I'm curious, so out of those tactics you just told me about, do you have any examples of campaigns tying to these that you've done in the past that performed really well, and any insight as to why they performed well?
Yeah, we've had a lot of success with multiple clients. Trusted House Sitters, you know, that we've already talked about, is one of them. But another one that I want to talk about, because I think it feeds into like just the overall, all different types of strategies basically that we do, is Soliant. So with Soliant Health, we had a campaign that was a Happy and Healthy Estates. It was a report that ranked all 50 states on which was the best for a person's mental health and to the worst. So with that, it contributed, new and relevant information for like a timely and important topic to, you know, the wide US media landscape. So it had a strong why, because people, you know, and you can go with different niches into it too. So yeah, it ranked on elements that can affect someone's mental health. So that can either be access to mental health care or financial bills, things like that, like average rent, and different things like green spaces. Are there like national parks? Are there different things? So it took from a lot of different perspectives of how a person's mental health can be affected. And using how we ranked it, we ranked all 50 states and we made a graphic with it as well. That looked really nice. That always helps to have something, you know, visually, especially with ranking states and things like this. And it gained a ton of coverage in our initial outreach, which was kind of back in November of last year, but we've also redone some outreach in the past month or so, and it also gained a lot of traction there. So it's definitely still relevant. And a lot of the coverage that came from it were from those like the media web stuff that we were just talking about. Like we ended up getting on CNBC and Forbes, and from there, a lot of like smaller Fox News, like sister stations, syndicate, local stations were taking it, and NBC stations were taking it too from there. So we ended up gaining a ton of coverage from that, and a lot of them were linked back to. It wasn't just like, you know, redoing just the copy of the story. It was hyperlinking as well. So that really, you know, gained up into the client's SEO. But it, like, the story itself and the idea of the campaign itself was really good, because, you know, mental health is one of those things that I think you can talk about and always have something new to say generally, because it's something new is coming out all the time. And with like this, I think it was enough to, because we looked at all those different, like, you know, topics and different points that we were ranking on, it made it to where journalists can be like, oh, okay, this isn't just looking at one aspect of this, it's looking at it as a whole. And I think that was something, and just like the data that we did collect and we did go out with was another thing that just had journalists, you know, willing and trusting to put out there. I think, and that's just as an aside. Another thing is just like trust for journalists, especially here in America and the US, is big. You know, having a journalist really trust that the data that you're giving them is true and is not quote unquote fake news is like something that is very valuable to them. So like gaining that trust, especially with high publications like Forbes or CNBC, NBC, like that, is very valuable. So this, but either way, this campaign for the happy and healthiest states that we had was has and still is really successful. Like we go out with it, you know, if there's a mental health awareness is coming up, or like different things with mental health, it's still something that people are interested in, even if it's not the most recent thing. It's still something that's strong enough that we can go out with in the future.
Awesome. I mean, that's a fantastic example. I mean, that sounds like, I mean, that's really cool to be able to hear about how it's successful, and how, even if it is something kind of tying in everything that Zoe and Ali have talked about so far, of how it kind of actually comes to fruition and makes a really successful campaign. So thank you for sharing that example.
Yeah.
My next question, actually, I'm going to direct to Sophia. So Sophia, we've kind of talked about how digital PR is at their place right now and how it's already kind of evolving a little bit in this presentation, but how do you see digital PR kind of evolving a bit more in the US media landscape as more marketers begin to start adopting this practice of kind of moving into a digital PR landscape?
Yeah, I definitely do still stand by that. It's a very untapped resource for US marketers, but then once they start to realize the results that it can create, that it's going to start definitely being included in a lot more strategy decks. Just for example, in a way that marketers can understand it is that we are able to create with digital PR extremely relevant campaigns that end up in the exact target publications in front of the exact target audiences with the most precise backlinks leading back to their websites and to their definite target audience as well. And so it's just a matter of overall boosting client engagement in a really positive way from a really strategic and tactical approach. I also see marketers and digital PR specialists collaborating a lot more on really unique campaigns, specifically that are the most relevant to their client base and to their target audience as well. And just as it continues to evolve, I do see it being used a lot more as a really great resource for overall success.
Awesome. Good answer. I'm a marketer too, so I like to hear that. Good stuff to hear from the marketing side and PR working together. So awesome. Then kind of another question I'm going to tie over back to you, Zoe. So we've kind of gone through the whole vision of what digital PR looks like and kind of the way that Search Labs implements digital PR. So what's something that you've kind of learned along the way of kind of learning when combining your SEO, digital PR, and combining content with a team? Or what are some things you've learned and you're kind of implementing now that you to improve the way you use digital PR?
I feel like there's lots I have learned, but I do feel that it's very much a kind of a puzzle that all has to come together. Like there is a bit of a sweet spot because you can have your SEO strategy and your SEO focus areas, and you might create a piece of content that is really perfectly aligned with that SEO strategy. But if it's not topical and it's not newsworthy, it's not going to be, noticed and covered by a journalist. And then if it's not connecting with your readers, so it has to connect with your readers and, and be really relatable to them, or like, create some kind of emotive feeling or something, then if it doesn't have that, then they're not going to read it or engage with it, and you're not also going to kind of get traffic back to your site. But then it also has to be relevant to your brand. So I just feel like there's a lot of different kind of puzzle pieces that make up this like sweet spot for when a digital PR campaign really does work and kind of hits all those KPIs and still really does connect with your audience, but also is relevant to the brand and also aligns with your SEO strategy.
Okay, very cool. Thank you for sharing. And then kind of another one I've got for you real quick. I mean, I know we've talked about it now. We've got a lot of good feedback on what we expect it to look like going forward, how marketers are going to be implementing it, but what do you think we can expect when it comes to the future of digital PR? I mean, I know it's popular over in the UK and growing in the United States, but what do you expect kind of in the future with this term of digital PR?
I think, and I know we've talked a little bit, quite a bit about integration kind of with SEO and obviously kind of creative, but I think it's going to be even more integrated, not just with SEO, but with programmatic, with organic social, with different streams with creativity and creative like video. I think it's going to have a much more holistic approach where our goals, SEO's goals, even programmatic goals, they'll feed into that kind of larger umbrella and that larger digital goal that we'll all be working for.
Okay, awesome. Very cool. Well, thank y'all again. And I know now, if you don't mind, I've got a few questions in the chat that I'd love to throw y'all the way to the panel. Again, fantastic discussion so far. This is great. Thank you very much. I know kind of what we've talked about a little bit. We've gotten a few, I know this kind of ties into some of the strategy, but we have a question kind of like talking about how often do you push out your campaigns And then kind of following up alongside that, like how do you find your niche journalists and what tools you use to kind of keep an eye on what stories that people are looking for and kind of working on? So it's two-parter. Sorry, threw it in at once. But
I'll answer the first part, but then Roma, Sophia, I feel like you guys should take over the second. I think how many PR campaigns we push out all really depends on the size of the brand, what works with their kind of content strategy as well. We can push out one campaign a month, a larger campaign, and then smaller pieces, or some brands prefer to concentrate on one campaign over 3 months, do loads of different, like a lot of data analysis, and have all different kind of little strands and angles to that campaign, which we can then push out and pitch over 3 months. So I think it all kind of depends, which is probably quite a annoying answer.
Awesome. Yeah. Everyone's favorite marketing term, it depends. But thank you. And then kind of if anyone else is interested, how do y'all kind of find your journal? I mean, you kind of have your target audience of who you want to read the articles and want to interact with this campaign. But when you kind of look at finding your journalists, kind of that part two, how do you find out who your niche journalists are, and like what tools are you using to keep an eye on what the journalists are looking for, and like what is going to be kind of a in the know story that you want to highlight for your brand?
I would say, and I'm also going to pass this over to Roma because I know she'll probably have another great answer for you, but I definitely would say when we're discussing client campaigns and we're definitely building out the content as well, there are definitely keywords that we will use when searching for particular journalists and also for target publications as well. And so while there are tools such as Muckrack that definitely help us to speedline that process, it's also a matter of, if we'll begin a campaign and say, this would be amazing in ABC News, or if it's definitely more lifestyle, we would love for it to be in Well and Good. And so definitely finding journalists that have previous content tied to our client and also in creating this new narrative as well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And then also kind of just like, doing the groundwork on like who's really covering these. So it might take a little bit longer, but we find it very helpful to really just kind of give through those keywords a Google search and kind of looking at the articles in a past certain time frame, seeing who's been regularly covering these things or these specific topics, and then creating those, creating those relationships with those people, especially if they continually have like a certain niche that we know that that our client is like within. So creating those contacts with those journalists, especially on high publications like Well and Good or Forbes or wherever, is something that, is a tactic basically.
Awesome, and we got an echo in the chat for Muckrack, so we got a lot of people really like that tool.
Yeah, Muckrack, love it most of the time.
Also, X, Twitter, that's a great tool as well to be sourcing new journalists, especially when they're looking for something particular, a part of your industry or niche is something that's when you can, use it for reactive work, newsjacking and trending topics as well.
Yeah, definitely. And you just reminded me, Zoe, that a lot of journalists I've seen now more recently, people are using Substack. It's a newsletter like format that a lot of journalists are using to, acquire those like, I need expert insight on this or that, or I need things. And so we've also have acquired a few hits from and placements from that method of finding journalists. So it's a good thing like to look at if like a journalist that and have a relationship or covers something, see if they have a Substack or some sort of newsletter that you can just subscribe to, and you can see if they need anything.
Awesome. So yeah, lots of good tools out there is what I'm hearing. So And we got another question from the chat here, kind of talking about when creating articles. So kind of asking, can we create data-driven articles that are not entirely researched by our brands, but the statistics are pulled together from various sources? So kind of and then kind of following up on their question, if they take the right narrative in the article, is it good enough to push out a campaign if it's not entirely all of their own sources, or their own research, but from various other sources?
I can answer that question. Absolutely, you can still create campaigns and content for data that you don't own. I think an index is a really great way to do that. I would also stress the importance of, if you're going to use external data, make sure it's from sources that journalists already use and trust, so like federal data. There's, census, CDC, all those sorts of things. But no, absolutely, our Soliant campaign that Roma was talking about earlier, of the happiest and healthiest states, or the best states for mental health, that was all external federal public data. So yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Then we have another one in the chat here too, talking about how are you measuring? So there's how are you measuring performance? And if you're using one tool that kind of aggregates everything into one place, or if you're using multiple tools to track your performance, but how are you measuring performance on these campaigns?
If we're talking about, well, I guess probably the answer for both the digital PR performance of a campaign, but also the SEO performance based off the back of a digital PR campaign, both answers are the same, really. We do use multiple different tools. I would guess for digital PR, we use Mars, Ahref. We use different metrics for coverage book as well to get our estimated coverage views. We do have some in-house built tools as well, that our dev team have used, that have built so we can really look at the value of relevancy as well. Like Google doesn't just kind of care about the strength of a link anymore, but it's how relevant that link is in comparison to the piece of content you're putting out for what audience. And then are you using one tool that aggregates, or is it multiple tools? But then we do have an in-house software that can also pull these together as well, which is useful, rather than going through lots of different separate tools.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of options. I mean, being able to do something in-house, or depending on what you're trying to track. So, well, thank you so much for answering that. And again, if anyone has any more questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, the Q&A functionality, so that we can bring them up here on the panel. All right. Give a few more minutes, but if anyone doesn't have any more questions, I'll leave it open for another minute just to make sure everyone can get their questions in. But if no one does have any other questions, I would love to thank you again, everybody, for attending our webinar today. This has been a fantastic discussion. Thank you to all of our awesome speakers. Thank you, Zoe, Ali. Thank you, Roma and Sophia. This has been a fantastic discussion so far. And I do, of course, love to ask as well, for anyone that's on this call today, if anyone would love to, I'm a part of the American Marketing Association. I'm the VP of events, and would love to know if anybody does have any interest in the American Marketing Association. And for those that are unfamiliar with the American Marketing Association, we're the Austin chapter of this national chapter, the American Marketing Association. It's an organization dedicated to connecting marketers across the United States. And I know there are global chapters as well, but we are here dedicated to kind of connecting marketers together and transferring knowledge across various aspects of marketing. And we have our Austin chapter, and so that's where we're a part of. Okay, and those that are interested, we will love to follow up with you after the webinar today and kind of provide some more information about our chapter and about the national chapter too. All right. Well, once again, thank y'all again so much for attending our webinar today. It's a great discussion and we hope that you got a lot out of it, and we'll gladly share this webinar out with a recording with everybody after the meeting. So without further ado, thank y'all again so much for coming and have a great rest of your day.
Everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.